Take two. Good evening, good morrow, and good day, and welcome to another edition of Slice and Dice here with previously in the Manylands campaign. Now, this is the kind of recap section. I'll do this every sort of 5 sessions or so. I'll try to squeeze one of these in to update you guys on everything that's happened so that you don't need to trawl through all of our sessions to get the idea of what's been going on plot-wise, but also meaning that you can get more of an inkling as to what's been going on behind the screen as well, because, you know, as the DM, there's plenty of stuff going on in my brain, sometimes on paper as well, about the campaign going forward, and sometimes it's nice to have a lift the lid a little bit on some of the things that the players either may not have caught on to, or in fact skipped altogether. So it's just a nice little thing that we can do here, and I can share that with you, the viewers. Now, you may be aware, those of you who've been keeping track of the campaign so far, thank you, Pavel, for updating us on the sound situation there, because yes, the sound wasn't working at first, which was incredibly irritating, but I think I've fixed that now. So as I was saying, those of you who've been keeping up to date with the live sessions on our Twitch, that's the Manylands campaign live streamed on Twitch, and that's fortnightly on Thursday. So in this slot last week, and of course next week will be the next one as well. You'll be aware that we're actually on session 77 now, so we've got a couple more episodes from where I'll be updating you today, but that's fine. You can catch up on those right now on our YouTube channel. There's a link to that on our Twitch page. Just click the catch up text with the YouTube logo there. Just click on that and that'll take you straight to our YouTube channel, where you can watch to your heart's content. You can also listen to all of our sessions via podcast as well. Wherever you get your podcast, just look for Slice and Dice or Slice and D6 and I'm sure you'll find it. So anyway, I'll be updating you on everything that happened in the chunk of 5 episodes from session 71 through to session 75, and the story. It's kind of a neat place, actually, because session 70 is when most of the group are fighting in the Underdark with defending Brina's home. And in session 71, they're back on the surface, and we finally, during these 5 sessions, see the group reunited totally, because Brucon, for a while, had been completely ostracized from the rest of the group due to being held hostage, effectively, by the Dragonborn. But we'll get on to that. Today is also, as well as being a campaign diary, is also a Q&A. If you have any questions about the campaign, about DMing, about life in general, about anything that you need any advice on, I could be an agony uncle, I mean, what have you, just drop it in the chat and I'll do my best to answer your questions, or of course to respond to whatever statements you want to put out there on our chat. Yes, I should also update you before I go any further about the other things that have been going on outside of the Manylands campaign. So those of you who be aware of how do I find friends? Great question, Pavel. Find something that you're interested in, could be D&D, and then go and do that at a sort of a social setting or public setting or whatever, or look into that and you can find friends that way. Usually just doing some kind of activity is a good way of meeting people, because before you have friends you have to have acquaintances, so you've got to kind of put those building blocks in place. That's one of many ways of finding friends. Common interest, definitely a good way of starting that. Be introduced by other people to other people and find like-minded individuals that way. Works for friends, works for dating, works for all sorts. Try that, and just remember that you're never alone, because lonely is a horrible place to be, and you don't need to be. There's always somebody there who will listen. There you go. That's my 2 cents on that one. So anyway, the Cage campaign, those of you who be aware of our YouTube series, The Cage, that has been delayed recently. Now, there is a reason for this, because we are sort of looking to find a time that fits all of the players, and we're also potentially looking at playing the game live, as in around a table together rather than over the internet, which is a novelty. It's something we haven't been able to do for the best part of 2 years, right? So that would be fantastic if we can get that up and running. And I'm also looking to do something similar with the Manylands campaign. There is talk about us, for most of the players anyway, it may not be possible for everyone right now, but to get most of us in the same room and then have the rest kind of tuning in remotely to the game. Something we're toying around with. I'll update you as we go on, but we're hoping to have something in place, perhaps by the end of this month. We shall see. So that will be fantastic. And finally, our podcast series, Baldoa, has had 2 episodes released on podcast so far. The 3rd episode I will be working on in my free time over the next few weeks. So hopefully that will be we'll have a 3rd episode released on podcast very soon as well. And in addition to that, you can now watch the 1st episode on YouTube as well, with full not animation, but so full of images accompanying the audio. There's art done by Gerald Dareth and character art done by Evil Owl Loki, and both artists are fantastic, and it's been great to kind of combine the two. And I edited together the video myself. Go check that out on our YouTube channel and see what you think. If you think it's good and you want to see more of it, you want to see more episodes of Baldoa converted into this kind of video format, you can join our Patreon right now to support us. That Patreon is dedicated entirely to basically pay the artists for their time, for their work. Be great if you guys can support it at home. Anything you can give will be much appreciated. I think there are 3 tiers currently of Patreon subscriber, but you can find all the details by clicking on our Patreon link, which I believe is also on the Twitch page. Go check that out. And yes, it will basically mean that your support will enable us to create more content. We'll be able to we'll have Baldoa in full majesty with its images, with its arts. I'm really excited for that as well. Also very excited, of course, to be working on session 3. It was great to finally, after a month or so away, to finally have another session with everyone together. Great fun and a lot of peril, actually, a lot of interesting machinations at work in Baldoa. So I will update you, of course, via our social media outlets and so on when the next episode releases. But you can check it out right now, the story so far, on podcast. And I said the first session is now on our YouTube channel as well. But yes, if you have not subscribed to our social media channels already, or following us on social media, should I say, please do so. It's Slice and D6 pretty much universally on any social media. Give us a follow. We really do appreciate it. And, of course, it means you'll be first to be notified about any updates to... it could be the Cage, it could be for Baldoa, it could be for the Manylands campaign, just anything that's in the kind of the Manylands, in the Slice and Dice hub, shall we say. In the world of Slice and Dice, those who follow us will be first to know when something new happens. Anyway, that's enough shameless plugging aside. I don't have the soundboard prepared for shameless plugs during the recap stuff. Normally we have it for the Manylands campaign, but never mind. I'll maybe sort that for next time if I remember. But without any further ado, let me delve into where things stand in the last few sessions. So starting with session 71. As I said, for most of the party, they emerged from the Underdark, from Brina's home of Swerf Haven, where they had just liberated the Deep Gnomes from, or the Swerf Nebulin, as they're otherwise known, because names, from an evil band of dark elves, of drow, who were taking them prisoner and trying to smuggle them away from Swerf Haven across the underground lake. Fortunately, our heroes acted quick enough to stop that from happening, meaning the Swerfs, as they're otherwise known, and yes, there are some similarities to the Smurfs, and yes, it is deliberate, but enjoy it. They were taken aside, and basically the party were given a hero's welcome, or a hero's send-off even, by the Smurfs in gratitude, and also got some worthy gifts as well for their help, as well as a touching moment for Brina with her mother, where her mother seemed to kind of accept that Brina is not called Sparkle Swerf, for one thing. It is actually called Brina, and also that she has to go her own way. She can't stay in Swerf Haven whiling away her days like most of the clan. She needs to go off and do her bit, do her duty, and go and be a hero, basically. So it was a touching moment there. Meanwhile, above ground, back at the Eyrie, which is a place inhabited by bird people known as Aarakocra, monks of a monastic order. They were, as you may be aware, those of you following the campaign so far, the Aarakocra were that's the bird people were under the thumb, under the tyranny of manticores that seemed to be led by some kind of druid. The party went and liberated the Eyrie. However, in doing so, also came across the Dragonborn from Rachir, who are a group of dragon-like humanoids who were riding on wyverns, which are basically very small dragons. They were riding on those, flew into the Eyrie, and basically started taking apart the manticores themselves. And so our heroes also contributed, but were then had a new threat to face, or was it a threat? But they came to an uneasy truce with the Dragonborn, who were very keen to take one of the party members, Neris, back home with them because she bears the mark of an ancient red dragon, and that seems pretty sus to them, so they wanted to take her away. But fortunately, Neris, using her wiles and her magic, turned herself invisible and escaped. But the Dragonborn were then very keen for the party to retrieve Neris so that they can do as I mentioned, and so took Brucon, the dwarf monk, as a kind of hostage, so that he basically as an insurance policy to make sure the party would return with Neris, or else, Brucon's going to be in a bit of trouble. Fortunately, Brucon volunteered to stay as he wanted to find out more about the monastery, being a monk himself. And so it was quite beneficial for him. And over this time, he's gotten to know not only the master of the Eyrie, Master Talon, and the other bird people, Aarakocra monks, but also spoke to the Dragonborn, including the Wyvern Riders' captain, whose name is Drez, who has had an uneasy kind of relationship with. They've sparred and fought before. It was pretty epic, actually, their last fight in single combat. But there seems to be an uneasy truce between them. And as Brucon has been whiling away his time here, as we pick things up in session 71, he's joined by Greenblade, who is a ranger, a human ranger who's been looking after or wandering around this particular area. The Eyrie's kind of to the northmost of his territory. He's more concentrated in the forest to the south. However, he has helped the party before and has been keeping an eye on things because there's been some suspicious activity going around, red mages, evil mages, and so on. And so Greenblade has finally shown up at the Eyrie unannounced. He also has in his possession the Bone Dagger, which he was asked to bring by the party previously. Gather it. He was meant to meet the party at a what's known as Snake Lake, a salt lake, where the party had fought a giant snake only a few days ago. However, on seeing the party that hadn't shown up in time, he decides to go to the Eyrie instead, meeting up with Brucon, and also then meeting the Dragonborn as well, which was an interesting exchange between them, if I say so myself, being incredibly helpful. The rest of the party, when they get to the surface, realise their horses, who they'd left behind, that's Louse and Horsey, or Reginald as he's otherwise known, were left. They had left them on the surface because, of course, going down into the Underdark through the tunnel, not something a quadrupedal horse could really do. And so when they return to the surface, they find they've gone, which is obviously a little bit worrying, especially for Neris, because Louse is her horse. She's very attached to Louse. And they kind of try to retrace the horse's steps. Now, this time, because the group are not so good at survival checks, but they do manage to pick up some tracks, which lead them up another route up the mountain towards the Eyrie, and find the horses stationed where previously a comet or meteor had crashed into the side of the mountain, and a mind flayer, an alien, horrible, tentacled creature, came out of. And they had to fight it, although it proved an easy fight when that happened some days ago. Anyway, they find the horses are stationed there, and the mind flare body no longer there, which seems a little bit, again, suspicious, a little bit worrying. They then gather the party, gather their horses, and wanting to take the horses up to the Eyrie is not going to be easy, because there of all the gaps, the trials along the path, which they had come across before. It's a kind of a test for new monks that they have to make their way up the path towards the Eyrie without using their wings. And so there are many obstacles they have to face, including a seesaw type thing, which also means that you need to be able to jump and you need to be able to climb and things like that. Now, horses are not so good at the climbing thing. So Brina hatches a plan and instead casts fly on one horse at a time. So some of the party fly their horses over to the Eyrie. It's interesting. Definitely a unique way of solving that problem. And so eventually the party managed to get up to the Eyrie, reunite with Brucon, and also find out what the deal was with the horses, and prompts a great bit of "I wanted to be the hero, not this guy" from Seth. Check it out.
The guy that was meeting us.
He fed
stole
us.
Our horses.
I found Reginald, and the woodsman fed us well, and brought us here.
The guy who was meeting us found our abandoned horses and took them somewhere safe, Seth.
Up a cliff, half a day away.
In the direction we were going.
So is that not where you were planning to take the horses, to be fair?
Yes.
But I wanted to do it.
This is foiled again.
There's a...
So, as you can see, Seth not best pleased that Greenblade had done something helpful. I mean, an ally being helpful, this is unheard of. And obviously not getting his glory there as well, I guess. So when the party reconvene, they then decide they need to have a little bit of privacy away from the Dragonborn because they want to keep the Bone Dagger secret from them, for one thing, and also to just reconvene. Seth, using his magic, creates the illusion of a private space. Kind of basically, they go into one of the alcoves in the Eyrie, and then he kind of magics over the entrance to make it look like it's just bare rock, which after a while the drunken Dragonborn get wind of and get a little bit annoyed about that. But it gives them enough time to receive the dagger from Greenblade, and also for them to try and ascertain a bit more information about it. Neris touches it, notices there's a warmth to it, but doesn't seem to get anything else. There was a train of thought that perhaps Neris is in some way linked to the dagger, because maybe they're both linked to this great red dragon. There's this kind of thought process, but doesn't seem to be conclusive at this point. But it does feel kind of familiar to her, which it shouldn't do because she has never handled that weapon before. So, interesting. Seth, meanwhile, decides to keep a hold of the weapon for safekeeping. Before blagging to the Dragonborn afterwards that they just needed their privacy because apparently Malar, the resident cleric and elephant man of the party, the Loxodon, gets a bit emotional and needed to cry, and so needed to do so privately. It's the excuse he uses. I love it. Fantastic. I'm all on board for that. They also ascertain through Brina's use of Identify that the dagger is magical, of course, and very old, very old. Probably something they shouldn't have got from Identify, but just a little bit more information that this is an important MacGuffin. I think that's kind of what's become clear at this point. And then, once that's all taken care of, the Dragonborn are now happy that the entire party are here, and they agree that in the morning they will fly off back to Rachir, taking the party with them. So from this point, we then switch over to a new country altogether in the Manylands campaign, which is great because it's only taken 70 sessions, but so far the entire campaign has taken place in Burikrin, in that one dwarven and human republic. And so it's nice to then switch over to a new place. It's called the Manylands campaign after all, and there should be many lands involved. And so here we are. An opportunity for them to go to the Dragonborn kingdom of Rachir, a monarchy. And culturally, it's quite different to Burikrin, but we'll talk more about that as we go through the recap. The group ingratiate themselves with the Dragonborn by getting drunk and then celebrate their sort of reunion of finally, after 10 sessions or so, finally all being back together in the same place. One thing I did miss as well was that while the rest of the party were travelling back to the Eyrie to meet with Brucon, Seth is contacted by a parrot. Not just any parrot, though. It's the macaw named Crackers from his pirate buddies. Sorry, not pirates, definitely not pirates, but anyway, his pirate buddies from back from his ship, Knight's Teacher, which has been moored further away in Calas, which is sort of the piratey place in Burikrin. Anyway, the Crackers delivers a message from Captain Burns, the captain of the ship, that basically Seth's secret's out. There's a wanted poster that has Seth's name on it and a bounty of 500 gold pieces. So just letting Seth know that somebody on the crew has betrayed him. What could happen with that? So yes, that happens. And then we move on to session 72, as the party are dubious in the morning about going to the Dragonborn kingdom. They don't like the prospect of being essentially taken as hostages to face trial, because they are apparently need to face the king, so the king to decide whether they are in fact spies from Burikrin who have been sent here to enslave the monks of the Eyrie, or were in charge of the manticores, all this sort of thing. The Dragonborn seem to believe that perhaps our heroes were in fact the baddies, and in fact were Burikrin spies who sent manticores here to enslave the monks. That it's all an aggressive act by Burikrin against Rachir, as the two nations have quite a fractious relationship. They really abysmal relationships at this point. They are not getting on well, and so there's this kind of cold war, if you like, happening across the boundary. And so Rachir believe this to be an aggressive act by Burikrin, and want to take these guys away to show the king that this is what's happening, and see what the king's verdict, the king's judgment will be on the heroes. And so that's not a prospect that our heroes are particularly delighted in, and also added to that they believe that Neris could be one of the Red Mages, or perhaps not one of the Red Mages, that she's linked to an exiled house from Rachir of Red Dragonborn, because she possesses the Red Dragon Scales, and perhaps she is descended in some weird way from the great ancient red dragon Ushtag, the Deceiver, who is basically the biggest bad in the history of the Manylands. He's a right wrong'un, and the Rachiri people do not want anything to do with that. And so if she is, in fact, then she will need to be destroyed or removed. So these are not prospects the heroes really are looking forward to. They're not given many good reasons to go to Rachir. In fact, it seems more they're being strong-armed into it by the Wyvern Riders, until... And this was a bit of ingenuity, if I might say so, on my part, thinking on my feet, being like, right, yes, they're making some good points. Why would they go there? What insurance policy can they put in place to make sure, if all goes south, that they can, escape from this place? And so Greenblade, who happens to be there with the party, has an idea.
That's a brilliant idea. I fully endorse it.
I realised I didn't tell you what the plan was. His plan, I should say, is that the Moonrunners, who are a group of smugglers and thieves who have been operating in Burikrin, and the party have dealt with them before. They're kind of on good terms with the Moonrunners, actually, as it goes. Well, anyway, their sort of main source of income is smuggling goods and people across the boundary between Burikrin and Rachir. So Greenblade suggests that perhaps he could have a word with the Moonrunners and get them to send some of their guys over into Rachir. That way, if all goes south for the party in Rachir, they can smuggle themselves out with the Moonrunners back across the border into Burikrin. That is the plan. Here's the reaction.
That's a brilliant idea. I fully endorse it.
And Greenblade kind of reciprocates by kind of grabbing, like doing the handshake where you grab the
Yeah.
Yes.
Sold.
And then just he tosses back his majestic Panten-like locks, not dissimilar to Marshall's, actually. And says, it's all in a day's...
I've got long hair.
It's all in a...
You can't see because I've got a background and it's tied back, but it's there, promise.
It's all in a day's work, and then,
Yes,
has a little bit of a smoulder afterwards. Yes!
Look at that.
Hair game is strong.
Beautiful.
Looks slightly like
Strong.
Animal there,
Only
Bart, with
because
the
it's
positioning
over-
of the headset.
Yeah,
Only
it was-
because it had the headset. I was like,
Yeah.
that's just a wig.
Wait, hang on.
Anyway, yeah, so then it divulges. It just descends into hair game being strong, and it is for some of our group. Beard game also strong, but we'll get onto that later. Yeah, so it's enough of a plan to. Pavel says, "Yo, when did Bart grow a full head of hair?" He's had it the whole time. It's just because of the green screening effect that you haven't been able to see it much, and obviously the headset's been keeping everything neatly behind. That's all that is. But I can assure you, Bart has quite a lot of hair, normally tied back. So there you go. There's a behind the DM screen for you. So this is enough to convince the party to go along with the plan and go with the Dragonborn to Rachir. Leobrin also has another reason to go there, as he was gifted almost like an internal compass by two not hags, two sisters he's met, who he's been tasked with finding the third sister. In doing so, will then reunite the three, and will, under the promise that his powers, which are a little bit sketchy at the moment, they sometimes work and they sometimes don't. So by doing this, they're promising that he will have his powers restored by them once they have their coven. Not hags, definitely not hags. Anyway, using his internal compass, it seems to also point towards Rachir. And so he's like, well, I'm going this way anyway. So as we're being offered a lift, I as well. Of course, the party are insistent that their horses are also taken, which is not received very well, but begrudgingly, Captain Dres Lambold accepts this, and they have enough wyverns to carry the party and their horses, and Malar being carried in, the claws as well, because he's a bit too big to go on the wyvern's back, that kind of thing. So they are whisked away over to Rachir, and in fact to Herthir, the capital, where they see the grand palace of Herthir, which is it's a bronze-lined building. It's very, very tall, kind of gothic, kind of got this Parisian medieval kind of feel to it. The rest of Herthir also has these very old-looking kind of spike-shaped buildings. They kind of towers that pierce the sky in this old kind of white stone with bronze tips. Bronze seems to be a big thing in Rachir, and we learn more about this. We will learn more about this as the party sort of investigate it more. But it's been a kind of a background thing so far, so I don't think the party know too much about it yet. But I will tell you that bronze, at least for the Rachiri, can be used. It works very well. It has a good affinity with magic, and so very easy to enchant. Bronze. There's a secret which the Dragonborn have passed down through the centuries of how to infuse bronze with magic, and so it's kind of very significant and important to the Dragonborn. Hence, you keep seeing bronze everywhere. Anyway, they are sort of put down on a landing platform, if you like. There's a space big enough to accommodate wyverns to drop off the party, because potentially this palace used to belong to a great red dragon, or to a great bronze dragon even, and so there would be a space large enough to handle a dragon, an ancient dragon, and of course wyverns would fit into this as well. Hello, should be studying. Thanks for the love in the chat. Thank you. Lovely job. So anyway, the party are dropped off, and then immediately they are kind of accosted by royal guards. Who require them to hand over all their weapons, because you cannot go see the king whilst you are armed. That's not okay. Okay, and although some of the party, Seth, think this is completely unreasonable, common sense would say, if we want to protect our monarch, we don't let strangers hang around them with weapons, especially given the context of the King of Rachir, King Zarndak, and his history, which is revealed later on as to why he is so security conscious. Anyway, the party are required to hand over their weapons, and while Seth is decanting or is otherwise taking off his entire bag worth of weapons, he has has a ridiculous amount of swords at this point. As he's doing this, Malar and Leobrin then kind of struggle to hide the to hide the Bone Dagger because they do not want the Dragonborn to have the Bone Dagger. It's very important. They do not want it in the wrong hands. Positive vibes all round. Think you should be studying. Let's have some positive vibes. Much needed, especially with, I don't know if it is where you are, but in the UK at the moment, weather is just poop right now. It is just grey and miserable. And that does, and it's amazing how much it affects your mood. So positive vibes, very much needed. Positive vibes. Anyway, so Malar and Leobrin, our half-elf courtier, struggle to hide the Bone Dagger, which he managed to get a hold of before Seth. But fortunately, Malar has an idea. Now, I've heard of putting things in the trunk, but I thought that was normally a American kind of American for the boot of the car. In this, we're talking the trunk as in a more literal elephantine sense.
Malar will run over, we'll approach Leobrin and be like, oh, goodness, oh, Mr. Leobrin, oh, you're just a little bit of sky sick, that's all that is, oh, Mr. Leo. And as I'm doing that, I'll say to him under my breath, oh, okay, I need you to be very careful now and just ever so gently insert the knife into one of my nostrils. And the trunk goes up underneath the cloak.
I didn't know that was going there.
I will try and hold it as straight as I can.
Okay. I guess we're gonna do this. I mean, I'm gonna insert like the blunt end, not the pointy end, into Malar's nose.
God.
Yeah, okay.
So just don't sneeze or you might dart someone.
Okay. All right.
How are we rolling for this?
So anyway, so that it still gets me. That was brilliant. So that happens. They attempt to put it up his nose. It fortunately or unfortunately does not work. He immediately, I think, sneezes it out, and it is picked up. It's just, it doesn't work. Yes, you did hear it right, Pavel. Yes. Try to put the dagger up Malar's trunk, which doesn't work. And so the captain of the guards, Captain Auburn, I believe his name is, of the Royal Guards, takes the Bone Dagger along with the rest of the weapons. He tucks the Bone Dagger conspicuously into his belt, whereas the rest go in a bag. Before the party are then led into the palace itself and into a waiting room to await being summoned before the king. Now, the one other thing I should mention about the general decor and the feel of Richir and Herthir, it doesn't have the frivolity of Burikrin in general. It seems, I would say, probably Soviet's probably quite a good description of it. It's kind of, the streets are quiet. It's a lot of people, but they seem to just rush from one place to the next, not really hanging around in the streets. It's a little bit grey. It's a little bit depressing. There's something not particularly altogether pleasant about it, and there's a very present military here. And it also resembles a vision that Brucon had only the other day, seeming to point to him that perhaps this is where the balance, where the light or the dark, the balance in between is taking him to, and that he is meant to be here. So in the waiting room, and another guard comes with another sack, this time to take the spellcasters' focuses, their arcane focuses, their holy symbols, and the like. Through some sweet talking, Malar manages to keep a hold of his holy symbol, just because it's just a symbol of the Aid. It's not doesn't actually do anything. Blah blah blah. Managed to talk it out of it. The rest of them, the Oberyn has to give up his tome, his very leafy tome, which he gets very worried about. It's going to get bent and damaged, but seems to be okay. And Brina's spellbook also is put into the bag with Neris's arcane focus as well. And so they await to speak to the king. So, in session 73, they are finally brought before the king, and there's a bit of showmanship in the sense that in Richir, it's theatrical in the sense that it's a very grand throne room. There's the king sitting there. He's got his advisors. The king speaks only in Draconic, and so the his advisor or his translator is there to translate into Common for the benefit of the party. Although Neris does speak Draconic, so that's she can understand either way. But the rest of them are really just having to take the translator at their word. And basically it's almost a courtroom drama. They are asked to give their case, state their case as to why they are not spies from Burikrin. The moments like this in D&D are always great because it really gives the party an opportunity to really go into the role play and also into the logical thinking, the problem solving, and to just, reason as best they can. And they do a good job. They put forward some compelling evidence as to why they're not spies, and so on. We also have Leobrin observing, because he has a unique perspective on proceedings, as Leobrin is originally from the forest nation of Manylands, which is neighbouring across the westuary. That's a great river between Manylands and Richir, and they actually have a good trading relationship. Whereas compared to Richir and Burikrin, who have a pretty bad relationship. And so he has some knowledge already of Richiri customs and basically their kind of cultural personality types and the rest of it. And so he notes the social hierarchy between the Dragonborn and the kobolds, which kobolds are basically small dragon-like humanoids. They're sort of the halfling equivalent of Dragonborn, I would say. What halflings are to humans, kobolds are to Dragonborn. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. And the kobolds seem to be much maligned by the Dragonborn for the most part. And this is evident here in the throne room. I was about to say the court. It's not the court, but in the throne room, because you have the king there, his translators, and then the important dignitaries who all appear to be Dragonborn, and then you have the court jester, who is a kobold, who basically is just there to entertain and nothing else. Or is he? I'll have you know that actually, secret, he's actually a bodyguard, and a very good one at that. But that has not been revealed to the party yet. There's been no reason to reveal that, but perhaps this will come up later on. So yes. The king also notes, of course, that Leobrin comes from Manylands because he doesn't hide it very well with his elegant ruff and his green sort of courtier robes and tunic and the like. He's very splendidly dressed is Leobrin, but quite clearly from the forest nation across the pond, and that is of interest to the king, and it comes into play actually later on in this session. So. So the heroes basically their justification, they point out that there was a druid who appeared to be in charge of the manticores, a female elf, I believe, who turned into an eagle a few times and seemed to be the one in charge of the manticores, not them. This seems to strike a chord with one of the dignitaries named Caladan Lambold. And is a relation to Captain Dres Lambold, who we mentioned in an earlier session. It seems to be that Caladan, was the one who was informed, was informed that the heroes were in fact the spies, and so it's called into question his source for this. Perhaps his source was in fact the druid themselves. Who knows? So anyway, after this information is put forward, along with other justifications from the party, it is eventually concluded, somewhat severely, I would say, considering how good their case was. The king rules that all of the group, aside from Leobrin, must face the trial of the 7 deaths. In doing so, by facing this in the morning, they will. It's essentially a trial by combat, although they don't know that at this point. But if they face the trial and succeed in the trial, that will absolve them of their crimes. It will clear their name. So, quite medieval, quite Game of Thronesy. Yeah, trial by combat to prove your innocence. I mean, it really doesn't prove any innocence whatsoever, does it? But if the gods will it, I guess, is the rationale behind that. They also then turn their attention to Neris, who's accused of being related to the Great Red Dragon Ushtag. The rest of the party vouch for her character, saying that she's not evil and she's that she's definitely not a red mage because they are working against. The party have fought the red mages a number of times, and she has nothing to do with them. Although she has had some run-ins with them, and they seem to have a personal vendetta against Nerys for some reason. In light of this evidence, the king then gives Nerys the option of either facing the trial alone, the trial of the Seven Deaths, or facing it alongside her comrades. Due to her, so after evidence is given, that is the choice that she is given. Safe to say. So Marta herself wasn't actually in the session at this point. So in fact, it was me doing it, and so I left the choice open so that Marta, when she was back, could then choose for Nerys. I would have been shocked if she'd chosen to face the trial on her own, and of course she didn't. But the choice was there nonetheless. So after this, the party are sent to their quarters as they are staying at the luxury of the king. They're staying in the king's accommodation as guests until they face their trial at first light in the morning. And Leobrin is asked for a private audience with the king, where after all the dignitaries have left, everyone has left aside from, I think, Leobrin and the king himself. I think even the advisor leaves, in fact. So it's just the king, the jester, and Leobrin are the only ones left. The king then reveals the secret that he actually does speak common, and it's kind of more for show that he was speaking in Draconic. Sometimes, knowledge is power. Sometimes hanging on to some information or hanging on to some of your skills and not revealing your hand too much can be beneficial. And in this private audience, the King Zarndak, confides in Leobrin not only about the relationship between Loranlas and Rachir, but also about the bigger plot that's at hand and the reason why his security has been so tight. He believes, the king, for what it's worth, believes that the group are in fact innocent of their crimes, but must make them face the trial nonetheless to save face, because the clans, these important dignitaries, are actually heads of all of the clans in Rachir, and are proving to be doubting his leadership in some respect. He seems to be losing authority and power, and so he needs to keep up appearances and appear strong and decisive by ordering this trial to save face with these important people. And also, he doesn't want the clans to become suspicious of his real intentions. The king really would like to keep these people alive, our heroes alive, to absolve them of their crimes, because also, if they are absolved of their crimes, that also means they could work for him, and because he knows that they will not in fact be working for one of the other clans, because if seeing as if they're going to be put to death, it would be putting them to death would perhaps reveal if any of the other clans were working with these individuals, because they would do something to try and stop this from happening. And so it kind of makes them. It would make the party. It would absolve the party of any collusion with any of the clans as well. And the reason why he wants to do this is because he believes that somebody, perhaps one of the clans, perhaps multiple clans, are plotting to overthrow him. In fact, it was only a year ago that an assassination attempt was made against him, and tragically, his son and heir, his only heir, and his wife, the queen, were both poisoned and slain during this assassination attempt. And so he has become incredibly paranoid since then, and now wants to get to the root, find out where the rot is, find out who has betrayed him. And it seems that he can't seem to trust anyone in the court or in Rachir, and so that's why these outsiders coming in could be beneficial for him. He then, acknowledging the close relationship between Rachir and Loranlas, observes that this is why he wanted to keep Leobrin out of the trial, because he doesn't want to cause a diplomatic incident, and so he wants to give Leobrin diplomatic immunity, because if a dignitary, as it would appear Leobrin is, from one of their allying countries, is then killed at the command of the king, that's not going to do much for their relations. But Leobrin is, as the hero that he is, and as as a good person, as somebody who doesn't want to betray his friends, doesn't want to leave his friends in the lurch, decides otherwise.
Much so. In keeping my friends alive, perhaps I should be with them. If you need me to sign something so that this is not a diplomatic incident, I'm very happy to.
Yes.
But I honestly, they might need the extra help, especially in a tournament, in a challenge that no one has ever survived.
I thought that this is what you would say.
Pointed look at the king.
As I said, I could tell you were a elf of honor, and so I completely understand, and yes, I will draft up the document for you to sign to waiver any diplomatic incident, and you may join. So you may join the rest of the party in the trial once he signs the document. The king also agrees to supply the party with some items to assist them in the trial. Basically anything to preserve life a bit, because he has plans for these people and he wants to utilize them, and he can't do that if they're dead. So after this, that meeting ends, and finally, Seth has been loitering around as he's also wanted to curry favor with the king in the hopes of lessening their trial to maybe 4 deaths instead of 7. He shows the king images of Daemon and the Red Mages. It is observed that there appears to be an anti-magic field in play throughout the palace, and so Seth cannot use his magic to do this. So he instead he's led to the orangery, the kind of the royal garden, if you like, but it's an interior garden which seems to have a blind spot, a blank spot in the anti-magic field, and so he's led there, and he provides these images, basically all the information he has about the Red Mages, to the king, because they firmly believe that the Red Mages are the real enemy here, and so it's important that we get that information across to the king at the earliest convenience. And that is where we leave session 73, as session 74 is the evening before the trial. So this is following straight on from Seth talking to the king. The rest of the party, after Neris decides she wants to face the 7 deaths with the rest of the group, well played, good idea, they then basically want to find out more about what the 7 deaths are, trying to get as much information as possible on what they could be facing in the morning. And so so some of the party managed to bribe one of the guards with some of the gnomish trinkets they were gifted by the Swerfs of Swerfhaven. They find a lead on what the 7 deaths are. They are told to go to the Salis-Sen Inn in the Green District of Herthir to find out. Now, Salis-Sen is the name of the ancient green dragon. Bit of lore for you here. Salis-Sen was also known as the Quiet Death, known to have a lot of information, but also to bring back terrible, terrible repercussions. So, and as a green dragon, poison seems to be a big thing for the green dragon and for those associated with them, and so the Green District is run by the Green Dragonborn clan, which we find out more about later. But they find that hot lead and decide to head in that direction. But they must do so under guard, because they are facing trial in the morning. Royal guards will have to accompany them around the city. So the royal guards kind of guide them. They retrieve their weapons, notably not getting the Bone Dagger back. In fact, it doesn't appear to be on the guard captain when he gives them the rest of their weapons. But they are nonetheless led into the city and go to the Green District. Now, it's great because it's the first time they're wandering through the city, and the entire city is divided into districts, and each district has its own kind of unique flavour and feel to it. The Green District is what's prominent straight away is that it's not a very desirable place to be, but not in a kind of run-down way, but more in a kind of suspicious and easy to get lost kind of way. There is a greenish haze that hangs over the Green District, making it very hard to wander around without getting lost if you don't know where you're going. So I made the group roll a lot for I can't remember what check it was now, but basically so that they wouldn't become lost and they'd all hang on to each other. It may have been sleight of hand or something like that to hang on to the person in front. As the frontmost guard would lead the way and kind of knows where they're going, but everyone else needs to hang on and not get lost. Twice, Dan as Malar rolled a natural 20, which then covered for Bart as Brucon rolling terribly both times, like on the way and on the way back. The natural 20 overrid like the natural 1 or whatever it was that Bart got. And so somehow the entire group stayed together and managed to get there unscathed to the inn. And surprisingly, as investigations go, Malar decided to take the lead in talking to their sources, that supposedly the contacts they had at the Salacen Inn.
Have you asked them what the 7 deaths is?
Mr. Safa, you've got to let me tell you something. You've got to establish a rapport. You've got to work the contact, as it were. So no, not yet. I'm
into the
getting
bar
tricked.
and ordered a water.
Okay, get your flirt on then. Come on.
Oh, well, that'll be it. What's the damage and anything about the 7 deaths?
Could you make a persuasion check, please, Malar?
Come on, you charismatic elephant.
Oh boy.
Things D&D make you say.
I'm the bartender. Oh.
3.
That's about what I was hoping
Who
for.
knew? Charming the bartender with, "I'll have a water. Can you tell me your culture's secrets?" Went down not well.
Yeah, surprising that, really. Trying to get information from the barkeep. There was an undercurrent of threat behind the barman as well. The barkeeper, she didn't seem too impressed with Malar and stuff. And also, it was observed that the party have Buricran pieces, but they don't have the currency of the Dragonborn Kingdom. They don't have Richiri dragons. So it's like, how are you going to pay for the drinks? I made my own misery. If you're DMing and you decide to have different currencies in different countries, keep it simple. Don't have an exchange rate. Honestly, I've done it now, and I regretted it immediately. But it was really cool in principle, but now having to work out how much the converting stuff over to the other currency is just it's blowing my tiny little mind. I think it is for the party too. It also doesn't help that on D&D Beyond, that you can only have currency in one type, which is gold pieces, silver pieces, and so on. So any other currency, you have to just make a note somewhere and track it that way, which is so yeah, don't do that. If you want to have another currency, it could be labeled differently, it could be named something different, but just keep the values the same, because otherwise it gets very, very confusing. But anyway, there was kind of this threat. The barman suggested that the group go across to a sort of money lending house across the road, that they could then change their coin, and then also said, we won't kill you here, not while you've got royal guards with you, which again didn't go down that well. Anyway, they instead they eventually agree with the barkeep to just pay in Buricran pieces, and the barkeep will change it over into common currency, but perhaps with a substantial markup, which we'll see. They then finally Malar with his with casting tongues on himself, and Neris being able to speak Draconic. They speak to their sources to supposedly work in the maintenance of the 7 deaths. They seem to be sort of tend to mucking out the 7 deaths lair. As it transpires, they eventually find out through their investigation and through not interrogation, but through their talk with these contacts, that the Seven Deaths is in fact a hydra. A hydra, for those of you who don't know, being a many-headed reptilian creature. So the Seven Deaths perhaps pertains to its 7 heads. With this information in hand, they head out of the Green District and they head back towards the palace, going by the Blue District first, which is the district run by the Lambolds and their leader Caladan Lambold, and his casino being a prominent feature in the Blue District, Caladan's Casino, or Caladan's as it's otherwise known. So they head by there because they have been incentivized, talking of money, to bet on themselves to win the trial of the 7 Deaths. Because, hey, Caladan's meant to be the richest guy in Richir. Betting with him, if they win the trial, they'll be rich. If they lose the trial, they'll be dead anyway. So might as well put some money on themselves. This proves to be a very slippery negotiation on this kind of bet. Caladan is very difficult, obstinate, you might say, in his dealings with them. And partially this was because he is meant to be this kind of obstructive character, but also because I think I realised as I was negotiating that I perhaps gave them a really good rate to begin with, and probably too good, in fact. And so kind of had to try and retroactively get my way out of it, which you'll kind of witness with the next clip I'm going to show you. But basically, originally they were offered 101 odds that they would defeat the creature, that they would kill the creature. And over half the party would survive. And then they negotiate further, and then he kind of goes, oh, you mean you want to defeat the creature but not kill it? Well, that we'll have to change the odds for that then, because that will kind of open things up further, this sort of thing. Basically, any excuse that he can lower the odds, he does it. It's quite comedic, and at one point the party basically turn around and walk away, and he has to go, no, all right. And eventually they settle on 50-1 odds. But just give you an example, here's the clip. Different. So the mage hand scribbles out what he was writing, starts again. Okay, so in which case, to defeat the creature and more than half of you survive, I think it's 30-1 odds.
No, that's the creature's never been defeated.
Sorry, you're saying that you think it's easier to defeat the creature without killing it than killing it?
Perhaps so.
We finally have some information.
Yes, that is useful to know. Okay, what do we think, chaps?
I mean, if you keep questioning the deal, I'll just keep lowering the odds. So.
Well, no, you changed the deal like midway through, like just as you had written the paperwork down. You suddenly changed one of the words.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the mage hand scribbles out again. So 20-1 odds, yes?
Okay, let's go, guys.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. He'd just be like, you know what? Keep questioning it. I'm going to keep lowering it. Eventually, kind of coerces them. He doesn't coerce them. He convinces them to come back, and they accept 50-1 odds that over half of them will survive and they will defeat the creature. And even the most pious of the party end up having a flutter. The least amount being put on being 100 gold pieces. Again, they're gambling with their own currency, with Bureaucran currency, which proves a little problematic on the other side. But we won't be reviewing that today because we don't even get that far. That's, I think, happens in session 76. But anyway, after placing their bets, they head back to the palace and find the items that have been donated by the king left in their quarters. This includes a jeweled necklace known as a periapt of wound closure, with a note saying that this will stop you from dying, or this will protect you. And it's surreptitiously, or actually very conspicuously, placed on top of Leobrin's waiver, his diplomatic immunity sort of waiver, for him to sign. There is also a cloak, a sort of marvellous sort of red silken cloak. It's more felt cloak. It says, "This will protect you," which is a cloak of protection, surprisingly. And finally, a scroll is inserted into Brina's spellbook, which has also been placed in the quarters as well, which Brina is then left to study. Obviously, Angelique's not here, so I've been role-playing Brina currently, and so she doesn't tell the party what it is, but she finds out for herself a bit later on out of game. And then finally, with all those items donated to them, they go to sleep to get them their strength up, ready for the trial itself, which they face in the morning. And of course, session 75 is just that morning where they face the trial. They are woken up before first light. They receive their weapons. The Bone Dagger still has not been given back to them, and are escorted to the pit. The pit is a very kind of like a coliseum that's right in the center of Herthir, and it seems very ancient indeed. So on the kind of the sands of the battlefield, if you like, of the coliseum, right in the center of there is a large hole with a metal kind of mesh on the top of it. It appears to be some kind of mechanical lift. That then drop them into the pit to face the trial. They're escorted to the pit. There's a huge crowd there waiting to see them. After some grandeur and announcing from the advisor, and then of course from the king, they are told to face the trial, and they descend into the pit once they all take their places on it. Now, they also learned from their information gathering that they should not tarry in the pit before facing the Hydra, because there are spirits down there that will cause them harm if they delay. These are basically the ghosts of previous combatants who have fallen or been slain by the Hydra. They still haunt the place, and mechanically they cause necrotic damage to them. There are in fact ghostly shadows which appear in the darkness out there, and they not only damage party members, they also drain their strength, and that's the really deadly thing with shadows. If you've ever fought them before in D&D, or if you ever used them as a dungeon master, they've got quite they're quite easy to destroy if you have the right weapons. However, they are pretty deadly, actually. If they get a couple of hits on you, if they bring it, especially for somebody who's not got a good strength score to begin with, if they bring your strength to 0, that character immediately dies. So they can be quite deadly in the right circumstance. So anyway, the party they don't know they're facing shadows. They just know not to tarry in this area. When they are lowered down, they light up a torch, and suddenly the shadows start attacking, and a couple of the party, Brucon and Seth being the swiftest, managed to make a beeline to get out of this kind of cave complex and into the main lair of the Hydra pretty quickly. The rest of them, though, are slowed down a lot, and it looks very ropey for Brina, who only had 6 strength to begin with, so she didn't have a lot of room to maneuver, but got hit a couple of times by these shadows and got drained. Fortunately, manages not to die, manages to get away from them, I think using the flight spell to just fly on out of there. The rest of them soon follow, and as Seth is the first in there, he's kind of trying to look for this Hydra, and there's a big pool in the center of the room, and a large rocky outcropping at its center, and he believes he can see something moving on the other side of this rocky outcrop. And as he kind of moves around to have a look around the side of this rocky outcropping, it's revealed that the rocks themselves are in fact the Hydra, and it suddenly rears up its many heads, and boom, it attacks the party. Now, it's tough going. It is a tough fight, and I think it was really rewarding on balance to hear from the party afterwards that they thought that the encounter was really well balanced. It was challenging. And with the addition of the shadows beforehand, you kind of you had that extra bit of combat, so that they had to use resource before getting to the main fight, and the Hydra as well for this encounter had lair actions, so it had legendary actions. So basically, I've turned it into a boss creature so they could do extra things that a normal Hydra from the monster manual couldn't do. So, beefed him up a little bit, gave him some extra attacks. He could spit venom, for instance, as a legendary action. Could do a sort of piercing scream, I think, or something, some sort of stare that would frighten people, that kind of thing. And in fairness, the party rolled pretty well for the most part. There was one notable incident, however, where a really awesome moment became really not so awesome, and that was for Brucon using the Boots of Speed, so that he can be very quick, and then channeling his key to do Step of the Wind, so that he could move even faster and propel himself across the water to then try and punch into the Hydra, and it goes a bit wrong.
Okay, so that's a 10 and a natural 1.
Oh god. Brucon, as you use Step of the Wind, you will not have to make an acrobatics check to save yourself from certain humiliation. As you launch yourself, you always get so caught up in the momentum of the Boots of Speed, the Step of the Wind, like channeling your key, that you are a feather on the breeze, and you start just floating harmlessly down. You take your swings, but you just hit solid air, and then
I nearly overshoot. Brucon it almost goes clean past the Hydra.
Yeah, you have to put on the handbrake mid-air, just and then just start off, and you float down. You hit the water. You're bobbing on top of the water. You're not drowning or anything at this point, but you are now staring into the many heads of the 7 deaths. So it was great as well to have a big combat like that, and to get out the Lego figures again, because I do love having our Lego here on Slice and Dice, and we don't get to see them that much when we don't have any combat encounters, especially now that we're doing things remotely currently. But yes, aside from a few moments like that, for them, it was a challenging fight, but no one surprisingly died. Leobrin made full use of the periaptive wound closure when he was knocked unconscious by some venom spit, and I think a shadow appearing out of the wall into the main lair. But aside from that, the party managed to stay together and survive. And not only that, but when what proved to be very helpful was Neris's use of fire magic, because that was basically cauterizing. Obviously the myth of the Hydra is that when you cut off one of the Hydra's heads, 2 more grow back in its place, unless you use fire or something like that then will cauterize the wound, essentially, so that nothing can grow back from that. Now, because Neris was using fire magic basically every turn, she'd get a hit in, which would then stop the Hydra at any point growing 2 more heads. I think only once it managed to grow more heads. The rest of the time, it's just getting seared, and so this wasn't happening. So it definitely played into the party's strengths there. And then when 1 head was remaining, Brina pulled out the scroll that she had tucked into her book and cast the spell, which then caused the creature to then die, its last head just lolling to the ground. The party then gathered up a couple of the severed heads. I think Seth was quite keen to do so before, as the creature dies, an exit door is illuminated in the far wall, kind of got that dwarven entrance to Moria kind of feel to it, and it opens up, and there's a very long ramp leading up and out of the pit, and actually into the middle of the gold district. It's nowhere near the pit itself, the pit entrance. It seems to they've travelled some distance. But one last tidbit for you. That scroll that Brina was given was not, in fact, it contained a spell that would give the creature the appearance that it had died, rather than actually dying. Why would she be given such a scroll, do we think? It's something that could be interesting, and I'm sure will come up as a later session, so I won't speak too much about that now. But as the party ascend the ramp, they find there is a single figure waiting for them, leaning casually up against one of the nearby buildings with a long trench coat on. And this is how we kind of end the session with this. A Dragonborn, it appears, with some black scales, that's leaning up against the building nearest to the exit to the slope. And as you, so the first of you up, Seth and Brucon, would notice this guy first, because he's not hiding exactly, but he's looking like he's trying to be incognito. But he looks over, he makes eye contact with you, and as the rest of you all sort of emerge as well, he unfurls the trench coat, and below it you can see what looks like some magnificent bronze breastplate armor. And he says to you all, "Good work. Your reputation precedes you. My name is Balthazar Bolt. I'm commander of the Enforcers. I have a job for you." And that's where we're going to end today. So yeah, that's how we ended it with Balthazar Bolt. Apparently, an important figure, kind of with a mission, with a job for them. And unsurprisingly, that job would pertain to, or perhaps in some way be linked to, what's going on with the king and the clans and the conspiracy and the plot. So yeah, kind of, it's nice that we have the big boss fight and then boom into the next thing, which I think the players appreciated as well. So the pieces are all in place, ready for the next part of the adventure, and it's going to be Herthir centric. There's going to be opportunity for the party to explore all of the 6 districts. Honestly, I have not got everything mapped out yet. In fact, I've got overarching plots, narrative, blah blah blah, or overarching ideas of what they may need to do in each district, or to get what they want. But I have not fleshed it out whatsoever, and I'm finding more and more actually that not only is it because I'm short of time a lot of the time, or short of energy to be able to really flesh out all these things, but often the more detail you put in, the more gets missed out. And so as long as you've got the bare bones, you've got the plot, you've got the important stuff in there, the fleshing out you can do on, at least I can do on the fly, and that's just made things a lot more organic. I think it's also meant that I can kind of I can respond to what the players are interested in and go along with those, go down those trails rather than kind of trying to force them into something because I've already got that prepared, sort of thing. I think I'll also be able to prepare for each individual quest, if you like, within Herthir when I have an idea of which one they want to go with first, because they're going to have numerous options opening up to them. So then, yeah, I can kind of respond to where they're going with it, and I think that would just work better for my sanity as much as anything else. So yeah, it's so the Herthir has been busted wide open. These guys are now basically micro celebrities in Herthir, as they've defeated the 7 Deaths, the only group that have ever defeated the 7 Deaths. This is a very noteworthy thing, and they are named pit champions in the next session. So anyway, some great fun moments throughout the last 5 sessions. I hope you've enjoyed them as well, because we broadcast this because we hope it entertains you guys as much as it does us. And speaking of entertaining, I'd like to finish today with I've just got a few different funny moments from the last few sessions, just to share with you, just back to back, just because they really made me laugh. They made the team laugh. And I hope it'll do the same for you as well. So without any further ado, sometimes the funniest moments happen out of character. This was one of those moments.
I haven't actually got an explicit mention of this, but it just seemed it beggars belief, frankly, that Brucon wouldn't have on him some booze.
Sorry, can we just acknowledge the majestic beard combing happening? It's like the side of a coin.
That's a well-maintained beard there.
It's like the profile, the combing. It's like stamp that on a gold coin.
1600 Emperor DK Florin.
Yeah.
Marvelous. So yeah, Dan and his immaculate beard combing there. Now you heard quite a lot of Marta in that clip. You heard a bit more of her in this next one, because a while back, when it was established that Marta was going to be missing for a few sessions, she recorded a little soundboard of some useful stuff. Yeah, and as Pavel said, and then he went and shaved it off. I don't think we pushed him into shaving it off. I think that was his own choice, but it was pretty immaculate while it lasted. But like all good things, don't cry that it's over. Be happy that it happened. Smile that it happened. Parting is such sweet sorrow, even beard from chin. But yes, it's some good things don't last, and that is a lesson for life. But I'm sure the beard will be back at some point. Anyway, as I was saying, with Nerys, Marta, was missing for a few sessions last year, and so recorded a soundboard. She was missing for I think session 72. So we decided to bring it back because Marshall still had it on his phone, and hilarity ensued.
To respond positively or negatively?
Yes. Just a yes.
Wait, which one?
Just a yes or something close.
Hold on.
That's right. Marshall's not here, but we still have her in spirit.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now you won't have a soundboard for this, I think. We would like to know how you came by these scales.
Yeah. No.
So perfect. So perfect. Holy shit.
That was too good. Oh my god, I'm gonna. Well, that's definitely getting clipped because that needs to be out.
It's getting
of the world.
clipped. Absolutely.
Putting the soundboard away because it's too powerful.
It was too powerful. That was insane. I really enjoyed that. And then finally, for fun moments, 2 of them back to back. Because who doesn't love a pop culture reference? Well, apparently Bart loves a pop culture reference because he managed to get not 1 but 2 in over the last couple of sessions. Here we go. Oh no. Why can't I see that one? No, one of them's missing. It's like a gnomish contraption, actually. It's like cogs and things, and it will. I think that's what's going to lower us down.
Oh, I see how this is going to go. This is going to be a dynamic situation. All right, everyone, if you see a travelator, be very careful. Is there a Scottish guy with a whistle?
3, 2,
Yeah, you
One.
will go on my first whistle.
adventurers, you will go on my first whistle. Sadly, no, doesn't appear to be.
My replacement character is now being called Wolf.
The Wolfman. Gotta love those pop culture references. And finally, I've managed to locate the clip. Here we go.
Memory's that good.
So you're kind of distracted actually by this, albeit melodic, but just quite present like white noise of Brucon as he's meditating. You know, they're like, I'm trying to think, but like, really.
Just kind of there, like just trying to really get in the zone, and then just coming faintly through the wall. You hear a whim away, a whim away.
and I just have to join in.
No, what was I thinking about?
No.
Yeah, it's very distracting. The lion sleeps tonight. I love that. So yeah, some really great fun moments. I hope you've enjoyed them as well. I have to say, actually, in preparing for this today, you know, as I said before, weather's all gloomy and crap as we're kind of getting into winter rules applying. I'm recently back from holiday, so I've got the holiday downer as well. So you know, it's been a lot of over the last couple of days, and actually watching back some of these clips from some of these previous sessions, just really. It was really welcome, and I think just really reminded me of all of the good times that we have when we're messing around playing Dungeons and Dragons together. It's been great fun, and these are the kind of moments that should really spur you on, especially as a DM, because sometimes it can get incredibly weary if you can get burned out DMing. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of pressure. And you know, it's meant to be enjoyable as well, and so sometimes I know I felt before where I think because I've been streaming it as well, there's an added pressure too, and you feel like sometimes you don't feel like you're enjoying it, and it's becoming more of a chore than a pleasure, and so it's really good, I think, if you feel like that, if you get into that headspace as a DM or even as a player, to just remind yourself of some of those really fun, great moments, because that's what it's all about. That's what we come here for, and I hope that's why you guys keep coming to the campaign as well. So anyway, on that rather sentimental note, I think we'll leave things for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with the next session live. That's Thursday, so that's a week today, 7:30 p.m. here on Twitch. Until then, whatever you're up to, be well, be safe, and look after each other. and the people around you, and just fill your week with positivity. If you can. As much as you can. All right, until next time, thank you all, and good night.